Let's get started. Welcome everyone to our webinar, Bulk Mailer, Go Beyond the Basics. I'm Teresa Chang, Marketing Promotion Specialist here at Satori Software, and your moderator for this session. So some housekeeping items. If you have any questions at any time during the presentation, feel free to send them over. There's a box on your right where you can submit your questions. We'll try to get through as many of those questions as we can at the end of the presentation. However, if we don't get around to answering all of them, we'll make sure to follow up with those ones afterwards. Just a heads up, this web session is being recorded and will be available on our website. Joining us today is Randy Walker, our Solutions Engineer. Randy has been with Satori Software for 8 years and initially started out in technical support for 3 years prior to taking on his current role. As a Solutions Engineer, Randy is an integral part of the sales team and takes the lead on many demonstrations, works on proof of concepts, and helps in any way he can in the pre-sales process. As you'll soon find out during the demo, Randy is a valuable technical resource for us here at Satori Software. So in this webinar today, Randy will briefly hit on the common key terms used in Bulk Mailer and spend some time walking you through a live demonstration. Rather than give you a high-level overview of the entire desktop product, he'll zero in on the specifics, giving you tips on how to optimize your use of Bulk Mailer, from the home screen to utilizing Job Builder. After the demo, we'll provide you with some available resources, and then we'll hit in Q&A. Since Randy has a lot to cover in the next hour, I won't take up any more time. So here's Randy.
Thank you, Teresa. And so I want to take a second and spend some time talking about the key terminologies and the differences between Bulk Mailer terminology and Postal Soft terminology. A couple of important ones to note is the record select. That I'll talk in detail about groups. And groups and record select are essentially the same thing. You can select and target specific records with the criteria that fits your need. Also, the load plan, load info is very important. Those we refer to as templates within Bulk Mailer. And that's how you can save your work so you don't have to recreate it every time you go to do a mailing. And then lastly, mailing in Bulk Mailer is directly referred to as a job in Postal Soft. And now we get into the demonstration. So this is Bulk Mailer's home screen. And on the home screen, there are a lot of valuable information that you can not only display on the screen, but access at any time. So this middle part right here, this is where you're going to come to access any of the mailings that you have created prior, or you can create a new mailing by double-clicking on this new mailing wizard here. Down here below in the status, again, this is where you can come to reprint any of the reports and see a history of what has been done with any mailing that you select. So I have this one highlighted here. You can see down here that I've ran it on 12/3, and there was 25 records that have moved. If I select a different one, you'll see this one that I've pre-sorted tells me the dollar amount, and I can get a quick high overview of what has been done with the job thus far. The navigation bar on this side, this is very important as well. This is visible throughout the Bulk Mailer program. This is going to allow you to navigate through the various operations that are necessary in order to complete a mailing. This data details pane down here, this is essentially your legend. This is going to tell you how many records you're working with at any given time. The current count is affected by the groups or record select as you're used to in Postal Soft. You can use the groups to target specific records that you need, such as all of your move update records or any of the records that have been found as a move, any of your uncorrected records if you wanted to go ahead and try to correct those manually or return those to a customer. And most important is your pre-sort results group. That will put your records into pre-sort order for you. The total count will show you how many records you have in the entire file, which won't be affected by the groups. That's just going to show you how many records you have. And then the mailing, that's going to show you what mailing you have open at any time. So in this middle screen here, I want to take a second and I wanted to show you a couple of the options that you have available to you. By default, we're going to give you the name. We're going to give you the description, the date modified, and the total records in that. However, I can right-click in the white space, and I can come down and I can select additional columns. And so you can see there's a number of columns that you can do here, including the last scan, how many records are tracked. Because we have Easy Track integrated directly into bulk mailer, you can get that information back. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in maybe the correction date, the moved records. That'll give me the count of the moved records and the moved date. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. You'll notice it gives me a few extra columns here, and I can quickly see right from the home screen how many records in each file have moved. For example, what dates they were ran through the move update. The folders here, this is a way that you can keep yourself organized within bulk mailer. You'll notice that I have a couple of folders here already. If I wanted to create a new folder, I can just right-click there and say Add Folder. On this point, I can go ahead and just give this a name, and I'll just call this one Customer C. And now if I wanted to, I can just go ahead and grab a list and just drag it right over to that file folder and drop it in there. And that's the way that I can keep my home screen organized and also organized by customer. So you'll see if I click on these, it's going to give me a list of the mailings that are associated with each customer. And I have an archive folder here as well. And the archive folder is all the mailings that I wanted to archive. So I'm going to go ahead and right-click on a file. And here I can go ahead and delete the file out if I'd like. I can, again, select columns. If I go to Properties, it's going to show me some properties. I can rename the file here as well and see any of the things. I can move a file here if I want. I can move it into a different directory. Some of the general statistics. Another thing I'm going to cover on this home screen are these menus up here. So if I go to the File section here, this is where I can come in and create a new mailing or open a mailing. Most importantly, there's these Manage User-Defined Fields and Manage Deleted Records. So to get started with that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and open a mailing here. And what that is going to do for me is that's going to enable me to come in and make any edits to user-defined fields. I can rename them here. I can rename number fields. I can just do that real quick. And now user text 1 can take any data, and I just called it demo. And you'll see that when I go through the import process. This manage deleted records, I want to take a second and talk about that. When you delete a record in bulk mailer, it doesn't actually get permanently deleted from your file until you come into this screen here and purge it from your mailing. You can always recover any of the records that you've deleted. So if you accidentally made a mistake, you could come in and recover that and move on without having to start all over. Okay, so I'm going to get started here by starting, and I'm going to open up or create a new mailing for us, and then show some of the various options in the import section. As I go through, I have the option to either create a blank mailing, or what I can do, if I'm getting a repeat customers list and it's in the same format each time, I could use an existing import template from the import-export section and import the records all in one shot while I'm creating the new mailing at the same time. So I'm going to just do this step by step, give it a date and time stamp, and click Next. And it's telling me I have one open. Do I want to close it and create a new one? I'm going to say yes. And now you'll see down here in the data details, I have no records. I'm in the All Active Records group, and my mailing's open. You'll notice that unlike PostalSoft, when I created that new file, I didn't have to define my field length. The reason why is bulk mailer will auto-expand in order to protect your data and not truncate any columns that exceed the maximum field length that you've given it. Bulk mailer will auto-expand the fields to the largest piece of data that's being imported in. I'm going to double-click on the import wizard here, and I'm going to click Next on the welcome screen. When I select a file to import, I have multiple different file formats available to me. I can do just about any type of text file, an Excel file, DBase file, Access, existing bulk mailer files if I had previous version, even an XML file. So for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import in an existing DBF file or the postal soft file format. So I have a postal soft file here that I'd previously processed within desktop. I'm going to go ahead and open it up and show you how you can import in your existing mailing list. On this screen, this is our mapping screen, and again, we represent the relation between the files or the fields within your source data and the fields within bulk mailer with a visual chain link. And if I hover over it, you can see that there's 15 of the first rows in that field, so I can be sure that first name is actually first name. You'll also notice that there's chain links already associated with some of the source columns. And the reason for that is bulk mailer was able to look at the field or the column headers and associate that with fields within bulk mailer. I can import as little or as much information into a bulk mailer file as I want. Obviously, you're going to need your name and address information to do your mailing. However, you may not need to bring in a lax field or a DPV vacant. That information will get populated within bulk mailer. If you have information that you do not see a field for associated within bulk mailer, what you can do is you can click on the Show All Fields, and it will give you an abundance more fields, or all the fields that are available in bulk mailer. A couple to note is this full name field. So I can import in a full name into that field, and what it's going to do is it's going to parse it out to first, middle, last, title, and suffix if needed. And in addition to that, we also have city, state, and zip code lines. So if I had a last line, I could import into that, and it would handle that appropriately as well. If I was doing multiple weight mailings or mixed weight mailings, I could import the piece thickness and the piece weight, and that way I can create a manifest report at the end of the pre-sort and stay in compliance with the USPS regulations. I'm going to scroll down here and show you our user-defined fields. And so in here, I can come in and I can list these user-defined fields, and I can give it a name. You'll remember that I did call this first field demo, and I did that for a previous mailing. So I want to come in and I'll make this one demo again, maybe take this one and make it demo 2. And these user-defined fields can be customized per mailing or on a per mailing basis. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK, and you'll see that those now reflect in this. So I can import in just about any data into those fields as I'd like. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and click Next. And I can give this a new name or save it as a template to where I can come in and reuse this for any data in the future that's in that format. And again, templates refer directly back to loading of plan or load information in PostalSoft. Call this Demo 3 and click Finish. At this point, it's imported my records, and I'm going to go ahead and click Close. Okay, so I've imported that list. Let's say there's a scenario where a customer sends me multiple files and they want me to mail them all at the same time. No problem. In bulk mailer, all I'll need to do is go back into the import wizard and import a second list into the same mailing. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and click Next. I'm going to select a file. I'm going to just select this Excel file at this point. So double click on the Excel list, click Next. And so you'll notice that I've just imported a DBase file, and now I'm going to import an Excel file. If I had a text file, I could go ahead and import that as well. One of the things to note within this, you'll notice that the first row here, it does contain the field names. We have this checkbox here. I can go ahead and check that, and what's going to happen is it's going to move my first row up into the column headers. So when I click Next, now all the fields have been mapped for me because that first row contained the field names that it could associate back with bulk mailer. At this time, I'm just going to go ahead and unselect all those or reset the fields, and I'm just going to import business, address line 1, city, state, and zip code. I am going to go ahead and associate first name and last name. However, I wanted to show that you do not have to link all of the fields up like I did in that DBase file last import. This time I'm not going to save this as a new template. Maybe this is a one-off file that the customer gave me and I'm never going to get that file format again. So I'm just going to go ahead and not save that as a template, and then it will not add a line item here onto the import screen for me. It's imported those records, and now you can see I've got 4,020 records in here. So that's the import section. The export section works the same way, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use groups later on to create a group or use one of the predefined groups and target just my move update records so I can export those out. So I'm going to come back to the group section. To view the records in bulk mailer, I click on this view section, and I have two options available to me. I can use a detail view, which will give me kind of a record by record look, or I can use the list view wizard, and I'm just going to open up one of the predefined ones, basic address. And here it's going to give me some predefined fields that have been deemed useful right out of the box. However, if I click back on this view section and I come up and I double click on the list view, I can create a custom view with just the fields that I want to see. So I'm going to do that. Click next. This one I'll give first name, last name, and then I'm going to come down here, business, address 1, city, state, zip code, and maybe I want to add the DPV vacant field so I can see which records have been deemed vacant. There's a whole array of fields here, and again, if you don't see a field in the list, there's this Show All Fields button, and you'll get a bunch more fields or all the fields that are available within bulk mailer. Some to note is your email, maybe web address if you're moving, or if you're associating those with the import section. I'll scroll down a little farther and find the DPV vacant. Down a little farther. Maybe I want the error code, error description, and then I'm also going to grab one more field. A couple more to note here is longitude, latitude, and the is resident, so you can find out if it's a residential delivery or if it's a business. But I'm going to grab some move update fields too. So I'll grab all those. Once I've selected the fields that I want to display on the list, I'm going to go ahead and click next, and then I'm just going to call this one custom. And click finish. Okay, now I'm just seeing the fields that I have selected within that view, and you can see them all reflected here. You'll note that none of them are populated at this point, and the reason why is because I haven't went and ran address correction on this. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go run address correction to populate those fields, and then I'm going to come back to the views and show you how you can use some of the advanced options up here to edit some of the records. So if I go to the address quality, I'm going to go ahead and just run address correction. You'll see all the options are available here on one screen, and the reason for that is I'm using what's called the Power Wizard. So if I come up here, you can see that there's a Power Wizard and it's checked. All I did was right-click on that. If I uncheck that and I click Next, you'll see I get a step-by-step approach through the address correction portion. So I'm going to cancel that, right-click on this again, use Power Wizard, and now I have everything on one screen. Rather than run through the address correction, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the move update, check for any moves within these, and then you can see those reflected back in the views with the moves address come back. A couple of the fields I didn't talk about in move as I go through here is the original addresses. We will save the original address, and they will be stored in the original address field. So I'm going to go ahead and process my list here. Matching logic, I'm going to search for business, individual, and family. That's going to give me all moves possible. I could limit it down if I would like, but however, I'm going to search for everything. Multiple input names. If I had more than one name, I can search for a household, maybe the common last name, Jane and John Doe, or all names found, individual moves. Depending on what type of a list it is, you can select which option you'd like there. We are a full 48-month service provider of this data, And so you have the option to limit it down if you would like, or 48 months is going to go back the entire 48 months. I could limit it down to a specific class of mail. However, all really does cover all mailing, and it's acceptable for any mailing, just as long as you ran it through the address correction. Or I should say the move update. Address correction is applied with the NCOA link as well. And here's the options that you can select for the address correction, how you want to standardize your addresses, any of the casing that you want to apply to additional fields. I'm just going to click Next and Finish. At this point, it's a real-time process, so it's connecting to the NCOA servers at Satori software. It's going to encrypt and send the data stream through our servers, check for moves, and then return them right back to the bulk mailer with the new updated addresses. And so you'll see for this 4,020 records, it's going to take just barely over 30 seconds. This Review New Address window here, this is going to show me my old original address after the zip+4 lookup, the new address that came back, and what type of move it was. You'll see there's 34 moves in this list. I could accept them individually, or I can go ahead and accept all. In a production environment, I probably would suppress that screen and just automatically accept all of the moves. However, I wanted to show you what the new address looks like when it gets returned. We also produce easy-to-read PDFs. Here's the CAS summary report. It shows that you've ran it through some type of a CAS certified software. And then here's the NCOA link processing summary report. This is your proof that you've ran it through the NCOA process. Some things to note here is the utilized process, NCOA link, CAS, DPV, LaxLink, and SweetLink are applied. And then you get some statistics down here, as well as some more granular information down here as far as 2 post office boxes were closed, for example. So I know that these 2 records right here I would not be able to mail to. And I'll show you how you can use groups to filter those out. Okay, so now that I've ran the address correction, I'm going to go back to the move and show you some of the fields that have been populated. So over here you can see that there are error codes, error description, and if there was a move, it would show me the move type, the move effective date, and so on. So I'll scroll down so I can find some of those. There's one that has been moved on 11/1 of 2010. It was a business move. So you can kind of get the idea down here. DPV vacant. You'll see that a couple of those have been checked. You can identify that those records are vacant as well. So you may want to filter those out when mailing, depending on the type of mailing you're doing. And again, you can use groups to filter out those records, and I will show you that moving forward. So in the group section, we have a number of buttons up here. So I'm just going to target this record right here, which is a DPV vacant. I can remove it from my list one by one here, and it's going to tell me I'm going to delete it. So I'm just going to go ahead and say yes. If I wanted to remove all the records out of my list and start over, I could hit the mass delete button. We have some other tools here, cut, copy, and paste. There is the undo button as well. Then there's also this certify a single address. So if I was just to pick a record here, and I'll pick on this one, and I'm just going to make an edit here and delete the zip code out of it. So now you'll see there's no zip code. What I'm going to do is highlight this record, and I could come in and I could single certify that single address. In addition, if I wanted to add a new record, I could come down to the bottom here, add a record, and then just certify that record as well. So if I click add, I could go ahead and just type in the information here and certify that. These are some of the, I'm enabling the auto correction. So if I was to make a change and move from a record, it would correct it automatically with this button here. We have some properties here. So if I click on that, I can show you, you can automatically correct the new address. You can set any of the options here, your dual address preference. You can look up line of travel, longitude and latitude. You can look up that regional or residential delivery indicator here, and then also this missing or invalid unit information. I want to take a second to talk about that. Essentially what that means is that you can require that an address has a valid secondary information, for example, an apartment. If I check that, any of the records that have been identified as having a missing or invalid secondary information would not get a +4 zip code and would be deemed an uncorrected address. We also have our formatting options here. So if I click on the formatting tab, how I want to standardize the addresses, I can choose the appropriate options here. You can order a column by A to Z or Z to A. So if I was to click on an entire column and order it from A to Z, you'll see that it's going to reorder my list. And this does look a lot like an Excel spreadsheet. However, because it is a database, if I select this field, all of the record attributes are going to come with it. So you'll see that this is John Hara. If I was to change that and go to Z to A, now it's Larry Clark. So you can ensure that your data is going to stay intact if you're in here ordering your list by a column. If I wanted to look up a record, I can do that as well. So I'm just going to come down and I'll grab a random person. I'll come up and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the last name, and I'm going to use this binoculars here, and I'm going to search by that last name. And so I can click Find Next. So go down, find that record. I can also replace, if I'd like, I can replace Clark with anything I want here. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. And then I'm going to come over and I'm going to show you our mass edits at this point. Mass edits is where you can come in and you can make various changes to an entire list. So in here, I can change the contents of a field. And what I mean by that is I can come in and I can select any field I want. For example, in this one, it defaulted to user text 3. However, if I wanted to put something in maybe salutation like or current resident, I can do that. Matter of fact, that's what I'm going to do here. So in user text 3, I'm going to go ahead and select that. I can clear the field. I can add a value. I can copy a field, or I can put a sequential number in there. So I'm going to put a value. And then what I'm going to do is click Next. And you'll see that it's going to take and put in that information that I've statically typed in there. It's going to update them all. I'm going to say yes. It went through, and it has updated that value. Okay, so when I did this, I didn't select that field to be viewed. How I can change that is I can come back to the View section here, and then I can right-click on my custom view and open it. And now I can just add that column to the list if I'd like. So I'm going to scroll down in the available fields here. Find that user text 3, select it, and now it's in the selected fields, and click Finish. So now when you scroll over, you can see that that's reflected here on the display. Another couple of things to note is you can split a field into two fields. If you had a field that you wanted to break apart, maybe by of the specific value or a separator character, you could do that. So in other words, if I wanted to break apart the zip code, I could use a hyphen here, and then it would put in the first part into one column and the second part into a second column. So essentially, I can select the field I want to split. And again, all the fields are available. If you don't see it in the list, here's the Show All Fields. We have the number of characters you can split it with, and then which field it goes to. Click Next, and you'll see that with this one, it's going to split at 1, so I'm breaking up my carrier route by the ascending order or descending, and then the route number. I'm just going to cancel that, and then show a couple other things. I can combine multiple fields. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time here, but essentially what I can do is I can put in an expression. So I could put maybe dear, and then maybe first name. So I'll select that. And then I can say dear first name, any of the other fields I want, and then I can put it to a destination field. So I can combine multiple fields, make a custom message based off of variable data that I have in that data, or in my list, rather. Change a casing of a field. This is very handy if you have data in user text fields, for example. So I'm going to select that user text 3 that I did before, and I can apply mixed case, uppercase, or lowercase to it. I'll just go ahead and pick uppercase to show you what it's going to do. It's going to go ahead and update those with uppercase, and then click yes. So once this completes, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the group section and show you the difference between our corrected records, our deliverable records, how you can create a custom group, and how groups definitely correlate right back to the record select within PostalSoft. Okay, so it's finished casing those records, and if I scroll over, you can see that now they're all uppercase. Group section. In the groups, you'll see that there are predefined groups here, and if I was to right-click on one of those, I can open up and see what the criteria is. So you'll see that the conditions are essentially that the error code is in between a valid range, and that's it. So the all corrected records is going to apply the cast changes to it only. So if I click next, you'll see that you can add conditions here, and you can use and or operators. I can add conditions based off of any fields within the bulk mailer and what comparison I want, as well as the value that I want to compare against. So at this point, I'm going to cancel that, and you'll see that with the all corrected records, it's just looking at the error code. The all deliverable records, which is very handy, you'll see that there's a lot more information here. And essentially, these are the records that we deem will get to the intended recipient, or that it is a valid address, somebody lives there. The moved, you'll see it's excluding some move flag values, or match flag, which is the move. So any of the records that have been found as a move, but it has a post office box that has been closed, no forwarding address, all those are going to be excluded from this list. Any of the deleted records are gone. Do not mail deceased and correctional if you're running through our suppression suite. You can absolutely exclude those. And you'll see there's a number of conditions, and so it's virtually unlimited the amount of conditions that you can apply to a list. I'm just going to click Finish on this one. And you'll notice now there's 2501 records that have been selected by this group. The reason for that is I've imported essentially the same list twice, so there's a lot of duplicates in here. So any record that has been found as a duplicate, or I should say an undeliverable record, will be reflected as a duplicate. So we have our undeliverable records. If I wanted to create in my own custom group, I could just double-click on the group wizard, click Next, and I can add any criteria here that I want, or condition. You can specifically target a field within bulk mailer that you want. You can use one of our predefined conditions. Data sampling, I can come in here and I can grab either in select records, so I can grab random records either at a percentage or number, or I can grab records selective in a consecutive range. So if I wanted to grab 500 records starting at record number 1, I can do that. Or if I wanted to grab 500 records starting at 501, I can do that. If you're using geocode, and I see this working very well for people who have a delivery area, such as a pizza establishment, they can use the geocode to put in their coordinates and then put in a range to target people within their delivery area, as well as not within or between. So I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the creating of a custom group, but what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to focus on this Move Update Records group. So if I click on the or I double click on the move update, you'll see that it's selecting 38 records. I'm going to go ahead and say yes. You'll see down here in my current count now I have 38 records. I'm in the all move update record group, and I have 4,019 records in my total count. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back up to the the import export section, and I'm going to export out my moved records. Maybe I want to return that list to a customer, or I want to update my database in order to ensure that I have accurate records. So I'm going to click Next. I'm going to save these out as a file. I can save them in any format that I want that's available in bulk mailer. In this example, I'm going to use an Excel spreadsheet and export out these moved records, so therefore I can maybe import them into my database or do something with that list. Call it moved records. I can select where I want those records to go. I'm going to click Save. So here I can select any of the fields I want. And again, if I don't see the fields in the list, I can show all fields. Maybe I want to export out my full name field. Full name is available, and what it's going to do again is it's going to combine all of the individual name elements. And so now I can put everything into one field. I'll scroll down in the list, select address line 1, address line 2, city, state, zip code. This address 1, city, state, and zip, that is going to be the new returned address that was brought back from the NCOA process. Now I'm going to scroll down a little farther, and I'm going to grab some other fields of note. Those fields are the move effective date, move type, batch flag, and then the NCOA footnote field. If I wanted to also export out my original address, I could do that here by grabbing my original, and now I have the old address and the new address, so I can use those for my records. I'm going to save this as a new template. I'm just going to call these moved records, and then click Finish. At this point, it's going to export out those 38 records that have been deemed as a move, and they're put in my export files or where I'd like them to go in the format that I've chose. So now that those have been exported out, you'll see that I'm still in the current count. I still have a current count of 38 because I'm in that all moved update records. I can go back to the groups, and maybe now I want to focus in on my all deliverable records group. And again, that's going to exclude any of the records that have been deemed undeliverable by bulk mailer. I'm going to quickly show you in the mail sort. Last time when I went through this, I went through a step-by-step approach. Well, we have a Power Wizard for that as well. So if I right-click on this and I use the Power Wizard, now what I get is I get all of the options in one screen. So I can quickly come in and I can change any of the settings, and I can do this for an existing template as well. If I right-click on it and say Open, it'll open that template. Maybe I want to change the permit information. I'm mailing to I'm mailing for a different client. I could come in, I could select the appropriate permit for that customer and apply the different mail owner to that mailing. All the attributes would be the same, so I can use the same template for multiple people and just change my permit. If you needed to create a permit that wasn't in a list, or you needed to add a new client, you could simply right-click on this, say Duplicate Mailing Permit, and then I could come in and make any of the appropriate changes. So you'll see that there's a couple of options here for your permit numbers and such. I could come in, I can change the agent's information, or most importantly, the mail owner. So if this was a different person, I could come in and instead of it being JR, I could call it Roger, for example. Next, and then I can give this a new name, and I'll call this Roger, and then Finish. And so that's a way that I can quickly come in, duplicate a template, add a new contact or a mail owner to that existing template that I already have created, and preserve the old ones. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the mail sort wizard in this session. However, what I am going to do is I'm going to go to the job builder and show you how you can tie together those templates in order to make your day-to-day processes a little bit more efficient. And what I mean by that is all of these templates that you'll see from the import section, in the views, the address correction options that you have here, the various groups you can apply, the mail sort templates, and again, you can just right-click on one of those and duplicate it as well. So you can have as many templates as you want by customer, by any criteria that you want there. Print mail templates, and any of these templates, again, you can just right-click on and duplicate them if you needed to make a slight change and it was going to be a reoccurring mailing for maybe a different customer. Submit. Here's where you're going to submit your electronic document to the Postal One directly through bulk mailer. And again, EasyTrack is integrated within bulk mailer, so you can come in and this is how you can utilize the confirm service and see where your mail is and how it's being tracked through the mail stream. Again, now I'm going to focus in on the job builder and show you how you can automate some of the tasks that you may do on a day-to-day basis. Either it's the same tasks per job, different lists, or you have a reoccurring mailing for a specific customer that may be a bi-monthly or monthly mailing. So to get started, what I'm going to do is I'm going to double-click on the job builder. And now I can give this a new name. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this demo. I can give it a description. So I know exactly what it is that I'm doing. But here I'm going to go ahead and click on New Task. To get started, you're going to choose a mailing. I'm just going to go ahead and say OK to that because I have to select the mailing. We have three options here. You can always use the active mailing. So what that's going to do is that's going to use the mailing that's open down here in the data details. So an example of this is maybe I have lists that are in different file formats or different lists coming in all the time, but I know I'm always going to run the move update on it. I'm always going to export out the move update records, and I'm always going to go to the group and use the group all deliverable records, for example. So what I can do is I can use the active mailing and set up tasks to do just that. I can create it. So before I execute this job, after I've created it, I can create a mailing, I can import that list, and then from there I can go to the job builder, run the job, and it will run it through any of the tasks that I have set forth for the open mailing or the active mailing that I have. If I have a reoccurring mailing, I can go ahead and select the list that I'm going to be mailing to on a monthly by monthly basis, and then apply any of the specific tasks to that mailing. If I have a customer that's sending me lists, they're always doing the same type of mailing, but the data in the list changes. I can create a unique mailing, which I'm going to go ahead and do this one right now. I can use their import template because they're sending me the data in the same format each time. So I'm going to go to the import and external file. Here are all the templates that are available under the import-export section. I'm going to import their list. I can select the new file if I'd like here. All of the mapping screen are going to be pre-done for me. I'm just running through the import section right here, making sure all of the fields are mapped correctly, and then give it a name. And now you'll see it's created a new line item here, and the task is import. So it's imported those records, or it's going to import those records. I'm going to set up a new task, and I'm going to run the move update process on this. So I can choose how I want to handle the reports. I can show the progress. When it's completed, I can pause after it. I'm just going to go ahead and say next. So I'm going to quickly set up the new job and then run through the job for you and show you how you can automate bulk mailer. So I've ran the move update. Now I can run duplication search if I want. I'm just going to group this records by the all deliverable records here. Finish. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the mail sort. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK. I'll just call this one demo. It's going to do full service intelligent mail, standard machinable letters, and it's going to use the sample permit. If I wanted to change any of those, I could. I can select which reports I'm going to generate. Again, with the mail.dat, you wouldn't have to generate the reports, and they will be saved on a file history. So with the reports, I am going to just do a print preview on these, and then click Next. Again, I'm not going to print any facing slip. I can select any of these for the pallet labels or the facing slips. For the demonstration, though, I'm just going to select None and click Next. Mail.dat, I would slave that to a specific location if I'd like. And again, that's required for full service. And now it's showing me any of the attributes for this mailing. I'm just going to quickly run through this. I've already predefined it, but if I wanted to come in and make any changes, I could do that. Your mail.dat section. The important part on this screen is this full service intelligent mail checkbox. Again, if I was using EasyTrack, I would select this, and then I can integrate mail tracking directly within bulk mailer. Again, I'm going to quickly just run through this because I've already defined this template previous. And then a new task, I'm going to print the records. I'll use a number 10 envelope with a return address. I can print it if I would like, and finish. And so now I've created this job where it starts from the beginning, creating a mailing imports, runs the move update, it's going to group them, it's going to sort them, and lastly it's going to print them. So I can say OK. You'll notice now it's put a line item there. And so if I needed to do a reoccurring mailing for a customer, I could just come in, run this job. It's going to close the records, import them, and do everything that I have defined in that job. I don't have to manually go through them each time. And so as it's doing this, I'm going to let you guys know this is going to be the last portion of this demonstration. I am going to repeat this demo, I believe, next week on Wednesday as well. So here's the CAS summary report. Here's all the records. I'm accepting them all. Going through the mail sort process. It's bringing me up my paperwork. And again, I selected to show these. You can completely suppress those, automatically print them, or save them as a PDF. And then lastly, I get my print mail section. Here's the intelligent mail barcode for full service. And I've sorted to all of the all deliverable records. Lastly, I get this status here. It's telling me that everything has been completed successfully. If there was a failure for some reason, it would show you that and it would stop. And so that concludes the demonstration of bulk mailer for today. I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Teresa for conclusion of the extended resources, and then I'll pick it back up for any questions. Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, Randy. Before we start Q&A, I do want to talk a little bit about our extended resource offerings. There are two key areas on our website you may find useful. Under the Support tab, you'll be able to find tech notes and express demos, which cover a single action or topic. In addition, we offer a variety of recorded and live online training classes designed to provide you with a basic introduction to using our solutions. Feel free to sign up for a class right on the support page. These classes are offered every Tuesday and Friday, excuse me. Another available resource is our feature request form. We want your feedback on what you need in a mailing solution. You can submit your feature. We encourage you to submit your feature enhancement request online. In addition, be sure to check out our Learn section on our website. Here you'll find webinars, both live and recorded, articles, white papers, guides, and many other mailing resources. We also have a monthly newsletter on the envelope that we encourage you to subscribe to. You'll learn about upcoming events, what webinars we have planned next, and latest postal happenings. We want to make sure you have the tools and information you need to keep up with what's going on in the postal industry. And if you haven't heard the news, USPS made an announcement in response to the recent PRC ruling to postpone the full service mandate. And based on this decision, mailers can continue to prepare basic intelligent mail barcode mailings and still claim automation rates after the January 26th date. While mandatory full service adoption has been delayed, we strongly encourage mailers to move forward with the full service transition. By making changes now, you'll receive all the benefits, including the best discounts, waive permit fees, and tracking information. So we do offer many complimentary resources on full service, but if you would like additional support, we offer a complete online training course to help mailers from start to finish become full service compliant. This is a custom training and is intended for Satori software customers, as there is a customized version for each of our product lines. And if you have if you're interested in this and would like more information, definitely check out our website. You can go to www.satorisoftware.com/full service, and we'll have an exhaustive list of resources to help you in your full service preparation. All right, and as I mentioned before, we'll try to get through as many questions as we can. For any questions not yet submitted, there's still time. If you have any questions after the webinar, feel free to contact our knowledgeable support team by phone or by email, and their contact information is listed on the screen in front of you. All right, I'll hand it off to Randy to kick off the Q&A.
Thank you, Teresa. And so I've been reading a couple of these questions, and they're very good. One of them is if there is a name field that has been inverted format, such as last, first, middle, how does Bulk Mailer handle that? Bulk Mailer has algorithms set in place that will try to identify last names. The view section is very important because that's going to determine exactly what has happened on the import process of that full name field. 95% of the time, it's going to identify the last name first and associate it with the appropriate field. However, you'll want to ensure that is the case, and then when you go to print, if it didn't in fact do that, you could either use the mass edits to move the fields around, or you could print the appropriate fields in the right order when you're printing on the mail piece. Can import fields that are combined, such as last name, first name, city, state, zip, then separate those fields? That question may have been asked before I went through the import section, but absolutely, we do have that full name field, and we also have a last name field or last line field that will parse out on import and put those into the appropriate fields. Once a file has been imported and you want to export a certain group, is there a way to reduce some of the fields so that you only view the fields that are used? For example, I have information in only name, address, city, state, and zip, but when I go to export, I have telephone, email, etc. listed, and I want to scroll through each record, what I get. So essentially, yes, you can export out as many or as little fields as needed. You'll just go through the export section and export those records, or those fields rather, specific to your needs. We market to residential. We target the new homeowners. Can we still mail to the targeted address new homeowner and get the address of the person that had just moved out and went to? If they submit a move through the NCOA department at the post office, absolutely. You can use that original address and associate the name used to target that person who has moved and get their address, and then you would automatically know that there has been a move there and target the new owner or the new renter, per se, based off of the information you get back from bulk mailer. Any idea of the date full service will be required since the USPS has decided not to require full service in January? And it actually wasn't the USPS's decision. It was a decision made by the RPC, and the reason why is because they're doing a rate increase and then the full service at the same time, and they were considering that a double rate increase, and so the post office decided to go forward with the rate increase rather than the full service requirements, and it's been pushed out to an unspecific date. However, it's to be announced. There's no real hard date that is going to be set or mandatory. However, it is encouraged because you still will enable you to get the discount and utilize some of the free services that the post office includes with full service, such as ACS. And so with bulk mailer, you have that integrated NCOA, but then there's also the ACS that can be utilized in order to ensure that you get the most deliverable addresses possible.
All right, so it looks like we're coming to the top of the hour. If there are any more questions, feel free to submit them now. Like I said, if you have any questions after this presentation, feel free to send them over, and we'll try to get your questions answered, get you all squared away. I would like to note a couple of things before we wrap up. After the presentation, please take a few minutes to complete our short survey. Your feedback will help us improve the quality of our webinars moving forward. And as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will be available on our website shortly. You can find the session along with many others on our Archive Sessions page under the Learn tab. It doesn't look like there are any questions. Oh, actually, let's answer one more question from Debbie. Randy, you want to take that really quick?
Yes, absolutely. Are the all undeliverable addresses removed from the sort, or do we have to manually remove those? Very good question. So if you're going to the all undeliverable records group, you'll notice that the current count reflects what group you're in. So anytime you look down at that current count, you'll want to note that, or that data details in the problem, you want to note that the current count is the only records that you're going to be affecting at any given time. So if you go to the all undeliverable records group, you'll see that the current count will be less than the total count. And so when you sort, you're going to be sorting on that current count, or within the group all undeliverable records, or all deliverable records, excuse me. And so, yes, if you group them, that's the only records you're going to be working with. You don't have to manually delete those.
All right. Great. Thank you, Randy. And thank you all for tuning in. And have a great rest of the day.